Hi there, everybody, and welcome to this week's Growth Execution podcast. We are here every week to talk with entrepreneurs, business leaders, founders about how they've got to where they are and what skills, tools, tricks they can help us to learn as well. Absolutely delighted to be joined this week by founder, author, Joey DonovanGuido. Sorry, I was going to say that wrong. Joey, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you today, Mal?
Yeah, I'm really well. Very well indeed. We're going to dive into a lot about your business, CuppaSEO.com, and how that's come to pass. But what I'm really interested in, pretty much right off the bat, is how it all started for you. What was that kind of moment where you sat there and went, do you know what I'm going to do? We're going to start business.
Yeah, well, that's a great question. And this is actually my second business. It originally started back when I lived in New York. I'm from New York. And I started a small copywriting firm called the Penguin Scribe. So that was, oh my gosh, like 20 plus years ago, before things like SEO was really prevalent in the world. So that was like my first taste of entrepreneurship. But this business, Cuppa SEO web design, that started just about 8 years ago now. And the idea came to me, I was really miserable. I was working in corporate America. And I was thinking about switching jobs, and my wife said to me, you should really think about doing something else because you're never happy in these big corporate environments. And then I went to a local meeting for a speakers association here in the States, and two people spoke about social media. And I'm sitting there in the audience thinking, why aren't I doing this? It was like almost like somebody opened up the curtains and let the light in, because I loved SEO. I had been doing it, I had been trained to do it. And it was just like this light bulb moment.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Brilliant. And I think that for many of us, and I'm sure for those listening as well, it's that they're really able to relate to that, working in kind of corporate America, perhaps not, just not finding your niche where you kind of belong, right? And that's a real challenge. And right now, with the pandemic that's been happening for the last 18 months or so, there are a heck of a lot more people who are looking to take that plunge. Do you have anything that you kind of specifically say to people when they're thinking about doing it but haven't quite, kind of got to that point yet?
Yeah, well, one of the things, and this is just from my experience, is that there's more than one way to launch a new business. I think a lot of people get scared because they think, well, I've got to leave the job I hate to do this, to have enough time to do it. And that's not necessarily true. Really, first is we need to understand what is your product or service, and is there a need in the market? And sometimes there's a need, but it's so not known by your potential clients that it can be a real headache to try and get that going. So it's really about positioning and people understanding what you do. But back to my point about many ways to do it, like what I did was I stayed at the corporate job until, well, this is another story. It's a little tangent, but one day my leader said to me, listen, Joey, you can't take so much paid time off to go on your kids' field trips. We need you here. Mm-hmm. And I had already started Cuppa SEO, but I was kind of just doing it on the side, a little bit here and there. But before that leader finished her sentence, I said, what's my exit plan? Yeah. So to your point, the exit plan could be, if you've got money in the bank, just, all right, I'm just going to leave. I've got 6 months worth of funds. What I did was I took on 2 part-time jobs plus my business. And I kind of broke my day out into thirds. Wow. So I could do everything. And I was working 80-hour weeks, which, by the way, was a lot easier than working a 55-hour week at corporate America.
Is that right? Yeah, it's so true, isn't it? You just, there's just a different mindset, isn't there? And just the ability to kind of, when you're building something for yourself, it just feels so different.
Yeah.
Brilliant. And you obviously, you work in the kind of particularly the marketing side, right? Alongside helping people to build that out. What are the things that people do, particularly say young businesses, that you find you have to fix the most?
Well, that's a great question. So I would say the biggest thing is new businesses, if they've got funding, can sometimes have a website built for them that doesn't really work for them. So a lot of clients come to us and they've spent between $5,000 and $10,000+, and they're really disappointed because their website's not getting found. The user experience on the site is really poor. And so it's really, it's a mistake through maybe like a lack of knowledge by the new business owner that they don't know what a good website should look like. You know, they see what's out there and they kind of get what they see and expect what they see. But a lot of websites that are out there are really subpar. So probably the best advice I could give is, you know, understand what a solid website looks like, how it performs. What is the SEO methodology for a good solid website that's going to get you found? So it makes you money and you're not just throwing money toward the web developer.
Got it. And that, I think, often, you know, I deal with clients for whom the website is their first port of call, where people come and see them in the first instance. And perhaps that level of thought hasn't gone into it because it was just a case of getting something up and getting something out. How do you determine what kind of is a good website or not? What are the kind of, how do you kind of inquire of your clients to find out what you need to build for it?
Yeah, so I like to say there's really no best practices. There are methodologies that work typically better than others, but it's in a lot of ways it's case by case depending on the client and their needs. So the first thing is really for us understanding who the client is, what their goals are, short term and long term, and really who their customers are. But there are a few things that we take into account that we really want to make sure is in every single website we build. So what I like to say is we like to build websites that get found, build trust, and make it easy for website visitors to take the next step in becoming a customer. Right. So that's kind of like a generalized layman's way of explaining SEO, search engine optimization, which is the methodology that helps your website get found on Google. And then making them comfortable when they get there as a user experience. And, you know, you can either have a positive, negative, or neutral experience with anything in life, right? Whether you're at the dentist or the hair cutter or on a website. And then the third part is making it easy for them to take a next step is what's called conversion. Yeah,
for sure. Got it. And in terms of how your business has kind of grown out and built out, are you somebody who, you know, you'll have like a handful of clients and kind of go deep with them, or do you kind of go broad into a number of different industries?
There's a team of 10 of us total, including me. And we're pretty broad right now. I've thought about that. That's a really good question. I've thought about trying to find a niche. And I've never taken the plunge with that because my goal is really, you know, to help whoever needs the help.
Yeah.
So we've done everything from massage therapists to physical therapists to software as a service clients, dentists. It's kind of all over the place.
Yeah. But it keeps it interesting, right?
It keeps it interesting, but it is a really good question because as an entrepreneur, that's something you got to think about early on. I think sometimes finding a real specific niche that you find interesting and becoming the master or the guy who's in that niche can really help your business.
Yeah, and I think what I've found is that people tend to talk, right? So, and you know, people will say, right, if it is dentists, mentioned dentists earlier, you know, those guys and girls will then speak to each other and say, right, this is who I got to do my website, and therefore this is what. But there's a flip side, I guess, particularly from your point of view, is then they can all become very samey, right? And that's a challenge as well. You've got to try and get that balance.
They could be, you know, it's interesting that you mentioned it because there are like real niche companies that all they'll do is dental,
right?
Or you know, MDs and stuff like that. And the problem, if you're that type of business where either you're part of you know, a chain or something like that, where there's a lot of same businesses across the country, or you just, you know, you're a dental office, a lot of these companies, they'll do like just like boilerplate or cookie cutter websites. So they're all the same. They have the same images, usually the same format, the same copy. And then they'll change it. Like, let's say one's in London, right? And then another one might be in Manchester. So the only thing that's different is the, you know, the city they're in.
The location. Yeah.
Yeah. So otherwise they're like carbon copies. So there can be a lot of sameness. But, you know, really honestly, if you get to know, in this case, the dentist or the dentists and who they are and kind of their quirks almost, or their personalities, then you can really bring that humanistic quality to the website. And that's something that can really differentiate.
Yeah, for sure. And then, you know, at the end of the day, people buy people, right? Even though, you know, everybody's
Yes.
very remote right now, it's about, I have heard, and you may get some of it's true, that it's the About Us page that generally gets most of the attention. Is that kind of right?
It really depends.
Yeah.
It really depends. But I think you're spot on. And one of the things we like to do is, here's the thing, if we can take that About Us information, right? Let's say it's a really good About Us page,
Yeah.
that not so much even just talks about the business or the owner, but about us, like what's our philosophy? How do we help people? Why do we love doing this? What are ways that we can make our About page and the rest of our website customer facing, making it about them and their pain and their problems, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, so if we take that About page and turn it toward the customer, what is it that they want to know that's going to help them make a decision? And we kind of make that the whole website, right? So someone gets to the home page, like on my Cuppa SEO page, the home page, there's a coffee cup and there's warm tones and there's coffee, and it's just, you know, almost like my goal was to make it like you were sitting down with me, a good friend, to have a cup of coffee together. And so you immediately get to know Joey and his team and his business before we ever have a conversation.
Yeah. Brilliant.
So I think you're right. That kind of is like saying about, right?
Yeah, come on in, yeah, and learn. And I think that's such a powerful, the way you phrase it was why. And I love that. And I spend a lot of time talking about, if you know your why, if you understand exactly how, why people are doing things, then you can so much more quickly connect with them and they connect with you, than if you're kind of just explaining how you're doing something, or, you know, what the features are of this sort of thing as well.
Yep.
So I'm sure that must come through in a lot of the ones that you develop as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and a good way to kind of focus even if it's a brand new website, let's say you're just doing it yourself and you're just getting started, you have no budget, or if you're a multi-million-dollar company, there are 3 questions you can ask yourself when you're writing the copy. That I call them magic questions, which is a little corny, but they kind of are. And these questions help you focus to make things customer facing. Can I share them with you?
I would love it if you did. Thank you so much.
Yeah. So the questions are, what is it? What does it do? And how does it help me? Brilliant. What does it do? How does it help me? And that helps focus the benefit, right? So something as silly as a toothbrush, right? Most people know what a toothbrush is. So when you say what it is, you kind of know what it does. Mm-hmm. But depending on your education and your dental hygiene, I guess you might not know, hey, well, it removes plaque. It keeps your teeth healthy. It helps you prevent cavities and gum disease, things like this, right? So that's a real simple situation where it's kind of self-explanatory. But if all of a sudden you're doing software as a service, like one of our international clients, Wyden, they do something called digital asset management, which is like Dropbox on steroids. And a lot of people don't know what it is.
Yeah.
So like talking about the benefits of using that kind of service versus a Dropbox is really important. Here's what you get out of this. Here's how it's going to help you.
Yeah. And that's so critical to be front and center and something that people can pick up and opt into, right? But also opt out of. You know, if it's not for them, it's not for them. And there's no point in wasting time with that potential customer either. Brilliant. So look, thank you so much for all of that. What we do every week is we like to kind of ask a bit of a quick fire round, just kind of quick questions coming at you, just to discover a little bit more about you and about the business, Cuppa SEO. So what to you is the best piece of advice you've ever received?
Well, I actually received it through a book from a gentleman named Dieter Rams.
Okay.
So Dieter Rams was the design director of Braun over in Germany for nearly 40 years, from the 50s through the 90s. And his philosophy, or his mantra, is less but better. And this is a great philosophy, both in life, but also when it comes to web design. Sure. That less but better philosophy really helps you get rid of all the clutter and the noise.
Yeah, brilliant. Love that.
And it's something that I do in my business too. I try to look at, like, is this just me spinning my wheels doing this? Am I getting anything out of this activity that I'm spending however many hours a week on?
Yeah.
You know,
that's a question we could all ask ourselves, like you say, every week, right? What is this? Why am I doing it? So that's brilliant. Thank you so much for that. Is there anybody you kind of consider as a sort of inspiration? Anybody who's sort of, you kind of look at and go, do you know what? That's really strong. That's a great way to go about things.
Yeah, it's interesting because I'm going to go, Dieter Rams is one of my inspirations, but I'm going to shift gears a little bit and actually mention a gentleman named Zig Ziglar. And Zig Ziglar is still an inspiration. He's passed, but he was a professional speaker, motivational speaker, who was very popular from like the 70s through the 90s. And he was an inspiration for me because, sometimes even if our business is really strong, stuff comes up in life, right? Personal, professional, that can really knock you down. And I've had some things happen. That my wife got sick almost 4 years ago. I've had some health issues. And sometimes, you look at a business and you say, wow, they got it all together. They got it all figured out. It looks like perfect, right? Yeah. And that's not true. They've got their own set of personal and professional problems. And I think sometimes we compare ourselves to these businesses that we want to be like or grow into, and we feel like not good enough. Yeah. Or not smart enough. And one of the things I love about Zig Ziglar, and by the way, if you've got iTunes, if you've got Apple Music, you can listen to him right there for free. Yeah. He talks about this stuff, and he talks about how to kind of boost your morale, not so much ego, but self-esteem, really healthy talk about how to get through tough times.
Brilliant. That's going to be so useful to so many people. And thanks for sharing that. That's brilliant. So also when you think about kind of how you've got to where you are, is there one thing that you would go back in time and perhaps change? Anything that you go back or tell yourself when you were first setting up?
Yeah, that's a tough one. Because I feel like even after almost a decade, there are some things I'm still trying to figure out.
Are we all?
Yeah. I would say that the biggest thing that I've learned, that if I could tell myself in the beginning, is it's okay to be wrong. It's okay to try something. And if it fails, just ask yourself, what can I learn from this? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's so strong. And I do think, and perhaps it's the same over there, this concept of failure, I think, is changing slightly, but too slowly. But actually people do view that as such a wrench, whereas it's actually just another step on the journey, right? It's to wherever you're going, that failure, in air quotes, is actually just another lesson and something that's going to give rise to better.
Yeah. I agree. Yeah, it's really how you look at it, right? We have a choice. When something doesn't work, we can look at it and feel bad about ourselves, or we can say, okay, I tried that, it didn't work. Now I can move on from it. But sometimes there are elements that did work. Yeah. Maybe your marketing campaign worked really well with connecting with potential clients, but they all said that's too expensive, or that's not what I need. Yeah. So we have to shift, and it's that agile marketing philosophy, I think, is really, really critical to any business.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think that's really, really important for everybody to get as well. Listen, Joey, it's been amazing. Thank you so much for your time today. Appreciate it. Really great insights as well. If people want to go find you, get in touch, how would they go about that?
Yeah, so they can just go to CuppaSEO.com, and that's CUPPA. S as in Sam, E as in egg, O as in orange.com. And yep. everything you need is right there. Feel free to get in touch. Ask questions even. Totally cool.
Fantastic. Listen, you've been so great and so helpful to so many people out there. Thanks once more, Joey DonovanGuido of Cuppa SEO. That's the end of this week's Growth Execution podcast. Thank you so much for being part of it. Thanks for listening out there. You can always get in touch with us at growtion.co, growtion.co. Anything to do with business growth and business growth execution, we're here for you. Thanks once more. We'll be back again next week. And in the meantime, let's get growing.